I joined the agency straight out of grad school. It wasn't a flashy company, no rooftop bars, no ping-pong tables, no free catered lunches, but it had a solid portfolio, decent benefits, and I was eager to prove myself. My official title was project coordinator, but in reality, I was a catch-all problem solver. The first 6 months were a blur of onboarding, coffee-fueled brainstorms, and late-night deck revisions. I chalked it all up to paying my dues. Everyone worked hard. Everyone stayed late. That's just how the industry worked, right? But late soon became the default. What began as the occasional evening turned into a weekly pattern, then a daily expectation. I'd log in at 8:30 a.m. and often would log off until 9 p.m. My evenings blurred into spreadsheets and last-minute requests. Dinner? Cold and eaten in front of my laptop. Social life? Practically non-existent. And yet, no one ever said the word overtime. Instead, phrases like client-first culture, startup mindset, and being a team player were tossed around like spiritual mantras. It was all implied. This wasn't work, it was passion. Sacrifice meant you were committed. If you didn't go the extra mile, you were replaceable. My manager, Lisa, embodied this perfectly. She'd send emails with the timestamp reading 11:17 p.m. and start meetings at 7:45 a.m. She once casually mentioned she hadn't taken a real vacation in 4 years and wore it like a badge of honor. The message was clear: tired is loyal. I wanted to be loyal. I did. But something about it started to feel off. I remember once dozing off during a Zoom call and jolting awake when I heard my name. I stared into the screen, heart pounding, realizing I had absolutely no idea what was going on. Just a few months ago, I'd been sharp, prepared, energized. Now I was just drained. So I did what I thought was reasonable. I approached Lisa during our one and asked, politely, whether there was a way to track overtime hours, or at least discuss comp time. Not money. Not a raise. Just the option to rest if I'd burned out during a crunch week. Her response? Oh, we don't really do that here. Everyone pitches in as needed. Overtime is totally voluntary. No one's forcing you to work late. I blinked. Voluntary? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hadn't she personally scheduled me for back-to-back meetings at 7 a.m. and then again at 8:30 p.m.? Hadn't she reprimanded me once for leaving a call early, at 7 p.m.? I asked carefully. So, if I just worked 9 to 5 from now on, that'd be fine? She gave a tight smile. It's your call. But we notice who steps up when things get tough. That's all I'll say. There it was, the implied threat. Do it, or we'll remember you didn't. I walked out of her office with a fake smile on my face and a fire building in my chest. That was the moment I realized, this wasn't voluntary. It was exploitation dressed up as ambition. And I was done playing along. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, laptop open, screen glowing in the dark. I didn't even touch my dinner. My appetite was gone, replaced by a single, sharp realization: they were never going to change. Not for me, not for anyone. They'd keep taking until you had nothing left. And if you dared to ask for balance or fairness, they'd call it not being a team player. But if overtime was voluntary, then so was leaving. I started organizing my files. I wasn't just going to resign, I was going to document everything. I dug through my inbox, downloaded every calendar invite, every Slack exchange, every passive-aggressive email. Some were blatant. One had Lisa writing, "Just a reminder that being unavailable in the evenings could affect your Q3 review." Another, "I expect everyone to be responsive tonight for the 9 p.m. sync." So much for voluntary. I made folders by week, labeled every file. I even pulled internal newsletters that praised staff for logging 70+ hours and answering emails around the clock. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was a pattern of expectation. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called a labor rights consultant. Her name was Dana, and within 5 minutes of our call she asked me, "Do they provide a written overtime policy?" "No," I said. "And are you penalized or criticized for not staying late?" "Yes." She didn't even pause. "That's constructive dismissal territory. You're being forced to work beyond your contract under pressure. If we can show that this pattern was systemic and expected, you can file for compensation, maybe even back pay." Back pay? I hadn't even thought of that. But now that she mentioned it, I realized I hadn't been just exploited, I'd been stolen from. My time, my health, my weekends. We built a case over the next 3 days. While still technically working, I continued collecting proof. I even had a Zoom meeting auto-recorded where Lisa said, "You'll need to push this tonight. I know it's late, but it'll reflect well on your review." Dana helped me draft a resignation letter, short, professional, but firm. And then we included the formal demand, 3 months compensation for constructive dismissal, citing the clear evidence of coerced overtime, violation of fair labor practices, and mental distress caused by toxic work expectations. On Friday morning, I walked into the office, handed Lisa the letter, and calmly said, "I'm done. I won't be participating in this anymore." She blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" "I've submitted my resignation, effective immediately," I said. "And attached is a claim for compensation for the overtime you called voluntary. I have documentation." She stared at me, somewhere between disbelief and annoyance. "You're blowing this out of proportion. No one forced you to stay late." I kept my voice even. "You may not have used force. But when someone's paycheck, performance review, and job stability hinge on staying late, that's not a choice. That's coercion." She opened the envelope. Skimmed. Paused. Her expression shifted fast. Annoyance gave way to concern. Because this time, I wasn't bluffing. Lisa didn't say anything right away. She held my resignation letter like it was radioactive. Her eyes skimmed the legal phrasing, her mouth tightening with every line. For the first time in 3 years, she looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I'm going to need to speak with HR," she finally muttered. "I already CC'd them," I replied coolly. She blinked. "You what?" "And legal," I added, lifting my phone. "Also, I've already submitted the evidence packet to the Department of Labor. Dana, the labor consultant I'm working with, said it meets the burden of proof." Her face turned pale. You see, Lisa had always operated like a middle manager on autopilot. She wasn't evil, just complicit. She knew the system was broken but had climbed her way into it, so now she defended it, even if that meant gaslighting people like me. But now, she was scrambling. By the afternoon, I got a call from HR. A woman named Carol invited me into a private meeting room with a neutral tone and a smile that was just a little too tight. "I understand you've submitted a formal resignation and a legal claim?" I nodded. "Correct. And I have all supporting documents." She clicked her pen. "We take these concerns seriously. But I want to clarify something. We never explicitly required overtime." I reached into my bag and handed her a printout, a Slack thread from 3 months ago where Lisa typed, "If you're not logging extra hours this week, you might want to skip Friday's check-in. You won't have much to show." Carol stared at it. Then I placed another document on the table. A calendar with 5 weeks of 12-plus-hour workdays, followed by an email from Lisa saying I was underperforming compared to others who stay later. "I didn't make this up," I said flatly. "You created a culture where refusal to overwork was punished, subtly, but consistently." Carol sighed and leaned back. "Okay. We'd like to resolve this quickly. What are you asking for exactly?" 3 months compensation," I said. "Plus confirmation in writing that I was not terminated, but left due to intolerable working conditions." "And if we don't?" I smiled. "Then I proceed with the claim. And I'm not just speaking to the labor board. I've already started writing a public Glassdoor review too. With screenshots." That hit her. Not the legal trouble, the reputation risk. Companies like this depend on appearing progressive. Their social media bios are full of buzzwords like people first, empowerment, and work-life balance. But behind the scenes, they ran on burnout and manipulation. Carol asked for 48 hours to discuss internally. I stood, gathered my papers, and said one final thing before leaving. I was never asking for special treatment. I just asked not to be exploited. In the following days, whispers spread through the office like wildfire. People noticed my desk was cleared. A few coworkers texted me in secret. "You really walked out like that? Are you okay? I've been thinking about quitting too." By the time the 48 hours passed, I received an official email from HR. They had agreed to 3 months' compensation, plus 1 month of unused vacation, and a non-disparagement clause, not for me, but for them. They didn't want me talking. Not online, not to the press, not even to former coworkers. Too late. The silence after the payout email wasn't just relief, it was a kind of clarity. I sat on my couch with a coffee in hand, rereading the terms. 3 months compensation, 1 additional month for unused PTO, and a carefully worded paragraph where the company acknowledged my concerns, without admitting fault. That was their way of saying, "You were right, but let's not say it out loud." The agreement included a non-disparagement clause, which meant no Glassdoor reviews, no LinkedIn posts, no viral thread naming names. But I could still speak the truth, and others were already doing it. 2 days after my resignation was finalized, I got a message from Kevin, a senior copywriter I used to collaborate with. "Hey, just wanted to say, what you did. Brave. And long overdue." Then from Rena, a junior strategist. "Your resignation made people talk. A lot. Lisa's been oddly quiet, and Carol is in back-to-back meetings every day." By the end of the week, 3 more team members had put in their notice. Word had spread. Quietly at first, then louder. People started comparing notes, digging through their own inboxes, realizing they too had been manipulated into unpaid labor under the banner of team spirit. An anonymous memo made its way through the office. Someone had created a shared Google Doc titled, "Reality Check, Our Work Hours versus Our Pay," and filled it with data. Real hours logged. Deadlines delivered past midnight. Praise given only to those who sacrificed weekends. The document had over 20 contributors by the time it hit the department head's inbox. I didn't make that happen, they did. All I'd done was light a match. The kindling had been sitting there, dry and waiting for years. A week later, I received an unexpected call. It was from the company's founder, Mr. Evans, a man I'd seen maybe twice in person. He had that silky voice you associate with TED Talks and investor pitches. "Hi," he began. "I understand there have been some recent developments." I didn't say anything. "I wanted to personally apologize," he continued. "We're taking a hard look at how we manage expectations and employee well-being. You've helped bring important issues to light." I couldn't help but laugh, softly, but loud enough for him to hear. "Forgive me," I said. "But where was this concern 2 years ago when I was burning out over back-to-back campaigns? Or when I asked for a comp day and was told, that's not how we operate?" He cleared his throat. "Change takes time. But your actions have accelerated it." No doubt he was trying to protect the brand, trying to control the narrative before it spiraled further. But I didn't care. I didn't need vengeance. I had gotten what I came for: validation, compensation, and a clean exit. "I'm glad you're reconsidering things," I said calmly. "But for what it's worth, I won't be back. Not even as a freelancer." We ended the call there. That night, I posted a simple update on LinkedIn, carefully worded, completely legal. "After nearly 3 years, I've made the decision to leave my role and prioritize workplaces that respect time as much as talent. Burnout isn't a badge of honor, it's a red flag. Grateful to the people who supported me, and looking forward to what's next." No names. No accusations. But it spread like wildfire. Within a week, it had over 12,000 views, 300 likes, and a dozen DMs from recruiters, ex-employees, and even strangers saying, "You just described my last job. Thank you for speaking up. More people need to." That post made me reconsider my current position. I hadn't just left a job. I'd cracked open a system, and people were finally looking inside. It took me a week to stop waking up at 6:30 a.m. in a panic, reaching for my phone to check for late-night Slack messages. A week to stop hearing phantom notification sounds in the shower. A week to realize I could go for a walk, and not return to 30 unread emails. Burnout doesn't vanish overnight. It untangles itself slowly, like a clenched fist finally relaxing after years of being tight. With the payout secured and the pressure gone, I gave myself something I hadn't had in years: time. Time to sleep. Time to think. Time to wonder what kind of work would actually make me feel respected, not just needed. Because what I'd left wasn't just a job, it was a system that tricked people into calling overwork passion. And I was done mistaking loyalty for sacrifice. One morning, about 2 weeks after the resignation went public, I received an email from someone named Mara Jennings. She was the director of operations at a new creative startup, lean, well-funded, and growing fast. Her message was short but personal. "Saw your post. Saw your story. We're building something different here. Would love to talk." At first, I was skeptical. I wasn't ready to jump into another fire. But after some research, and a few phone calls with current team members, something felt different. They had no late-night meeting culture. Their contracts included explicit overtime protections. Their internal messaging wasn't performative, it was transparent. People actually logged off at 5. I agreed to an interview. Not because I was desperate, but because I was curious. During our first Zoom call, Mara asked me, "What made you leave your last company?" I told her the truth. I was tired of being told my boundaries were optional. I wanted to work hard, not be used. She didn't flinch. She nodded. "We've had people here say the same thing," she replied. "That's why we build systems that don't rely on heroics. We don't want martyrs. We want sustainable brilliance." I like that phrase, sustainable brilliance. 2 weeks later, I signed the offer letter. Not because it was the highest salary, it wasn't. But because for the first time, I wasn't choosing status or clout or security. I was choosing respect. As I walked into my first day at the new company, there was no nervousness. No tightness in my chest. No invisible weight pressing on my shoulders. Instead, I felt something else, unfamiliar but welcome. Control. Control over my time. Control over my energy. Control over how much of myself I gave, and to whom. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to burn bridges. All I needed was to know that I'd stood up, not just for myself, but for everyone too scared to. And that's what I learned. If someone tells you your time is voluntarily theirs, make a choice that serves you. And don't be afraid to walk, especially when you know your worth walks with you.